Hey guys, and welcome to another manuscript critique brought to you by Pepperfish Publishing. Before we get started, please do like and subscribe and hit that bell notification. Today's critique is Maid in the USA by Judy Angelo, and it's a contemporary romance about a struggling French PhD student working as a hotel maid, whose life changes when she's unexpectedly hired by a wealthy businessman to care for his young cousin after a family tragedy. As she steps into his world of privilege, emotional bonds form, setting up a story about class divide, caretaking, and an attraction neither of them planned. Here's a sample. See if you can find the critiques before we analyze it. Chapter 1. Celine hummed a love song as she pushed the housekeeping trolley down the carpeted hallway. Today was going to be a great day, she told herself, no matter that she was stuck in Cambridge for yet another summer, when she'd much rather be back home in France with her mother and two rowdy little brothers. She smiled as she thought about Mark and Sylvain. The 10 and 12-year-olds were probably driving her mama crazy at this very moment with their constant pranks and rough play. If only she could be home with them. She was the only one who could keep those two in check. She stopped at the door to suite 1206. No time to dwell on that now. She had 12 suites to clean in the next few hours, and she wanted to make a good impression. For the last 2 summers, she'd worked at small hotels where the pay was minimal and the hours long. This summer, she'd been lucky to land a job at one of the largest hotels on Main Street. She'd be earning almost 50% more than she'd made at her previous job. It was still a far cry from adequate, but if she kept to a tight budget, she might just be able to save enough to go home for Christmas. Celine knocked on the door. No answer. She knocked again just to be sure, then stuck her keycard in the slot and pushed it open. Gathering up a handful of towels and tiny bottles of toiletries, she tucked them in the crook of her arm, grabbed the handle of the vacuum cleaner, then backed into the room. The presidential suite was magnificent, with a spacious living room filled with antique furniture and ornate carpeting. A sparkling crystal chandelier hung from the ceiling. Celine paused to admire the elegant room. Oh, to be able to live like this. She chuckled to herself. It would probably take a month's salary for her to pay for one night in this suite. Now where to start? She had an armful of towels, so the bathroom it was. Still humming, she pushed the door and walked into the bedroom. At that moment, she heard a click and the bathroom door opened. She gasped and the towels fell from her hands. Standing in front of her, his face hidden by a thick towel, was a tall, muscular, and very naked man. Celine screamed, "What the?" The man dropped the towel and stared back at her in obvious shock. "Where did you come from?" I'm sorry," Celine said as she backed away. "I thought the suite was empty. I'm so sorry." The man was staring at her with eyes that were shockingly green. "I was in the shower," he said, raking his fingers through his dark brown hair. "So, if you knocked, I wouldn't have heard a thing." Mon Dieu. He was standing there, tall and lean and every inch a man, and he was making no move to cover himself. Celine dropped her eyes, her face hot with embarrassment. She turned to flee. "Wait, I want to talk to you." Was he serious? She would not turn back to talk to a naked man, no matter how handsome. Okay, so now you've got the gist of the book, let's get critiquing. We're already logged into pepperfishpublishing.com, so we can click the manuscript critique tab to get started. We're using the high volume plan that allows up to 250 critiques per month, of up to 10,000 words each. It's normally $100, but with code 90OFF, you can get it for just $10. Maid in the USA by Judy Angelo is a fiction book, and the genre is romance. With those all set, we can go ahead and paste our manuscript. These chapters are quite short, so I'll paste both together, being sure to stay within your plan's monthly word count, and then hit critique my chapter. After a few moments, your feedback will generate, so let's take a look. The overall analysis tells us this book offers a strong opening, with an effective meet-cute and clearly established relatable characters. The core concept is sound, but there are areas that would benefit from further refinement. The pacing is uneven in places, character development could be more fully realized, and some dialogue lacks the natural flow needed to sustain emotional engagement. Overall, it's a solid foundation with tighter pacing, deeper character moments, and more fluid dialogue. The chapter has the potential to become a very effective opening. Next up is the What's Working section. The premise is immediately engaging, with the initial encounter between Celine and Pierce effectively establishing romantic tension. Celine herself is a relatable protagonist. Her aspirations and family ties are clearly defined, giving readers a strong emotional anchor early on. The setting is another strength. Vivid descriptions of both the hotel and Pierce's mansion create a luxurious backdrop that enhances the romantic fantasy. The introduction of Kylie raises the emotional stakes, adding depth and urgency through themes of family and responsibility. Finally, Celine's French-Italian background brings cultural texture to the story and offers strong potential for deeper character exploration as the narrative develops. Moving on to Section 3, we'll look at what might make a literary agent or publisher pass. This is where we start looking at potential red flags from an agent's perspective. One of the main concerns here is pacing. The narrative tends to slow down in exposition-heavy sections, which risks losing momentum early on. Exposition is the part of a story where background information, context, or necessary details are provided to help the reader understand the characters, setting, or situation. These moments could be made more dynamic without sacrificing clarity. Dialogue is another issue. Some exchanges feel slightly stilted and unnatural, which can undermine the sense of connection and chemistry between the characters. Closely tied to this is a lack of sustained tension. While the setup is solid, Celine's internal conflict around the job isn't fully developed, so the stakes don't always feel as high as they could. Character depth is also a factor. At this stage, Pierce reads as somewhat one-dimensional, defined more by his wealth and appearance than by emotional complexity. Finally, there's the issue of familiar tropes. The rich man meets working-class woman dynamic is well-worn territory, and without a clear twist or deeper exploration, it may struggle to stand out in a competitive market. The craft notes section gives us a closer look at the mechanics of the chapter. From a hook perspective, the opening is effective, but it would benefit from a stronger sense of immediate conflict or tension to fully pull the reader in. The narrative voice works well overall. Celine is relatable, but her voice could be made more distinctive through unique phrasing, sharper internal thoughts, or personal quirks. Pacing is another key area highlighted here. There's an imbalance between description and action in places, with some scenes lingering longer than they need to without clearly advancing the plot. Clarity also comes into play, particularly around character motivation. At times, Celine's feelings toward Pierce aren't fully defined, which can weaken emotional engagement. Finally, the craft notes point to the importance of raising the stakes. Celine's dilemma surrounding the job needs to feel more urgent, more consequential. Dialogue ties into this as well. Some lines lean too heavily on exposition and could be strengthened by allowing more subtext and natural rhythm to carry the meaning. Section 5 looks at where the book sits in today's market. In terms of genre signals, the chapter aligns well with contemporary romance expectations. It features a strong female lead paired with a wealthy love interest, which is a familiar and proven dynamic for the genre. From an audience perspective, this story is likely to appeal to readers who enjoy light-hearted romance, particularly narratives that explore class differences and contrasting lifestyles. Those readers know what they're getting, which is a positive from a market standpoint. In terms of comparative titles, the tone and setup are reminiscent of authors such as Sophie Kinsella and Christina Lauren. However, to stand out in a crowded marketplace, the book will need a clearer, unique hook or twist that distinguishes it from existing titles in this space. To close out this critique, here are the 3 most impactful next steps the author should consider. First, enhancing character depth should be a priority, particularly for Pierce. Developing his backstory, motivations, and emotional complexity will help him feel more fully realized and more relatable to readers. Second, the dialogue would benefit from revision. The focus here should be on making conversations feel more natural and less explanatory, allowing subtext and character dynamics to do more of the work. And finally, adjusting the pacing will strengthen the chapter overall. Trimming sections that slow the narrative and ensuring each scene actively moves the story forward will help maintain momentum and reader engagement. With those larger structural changes in place, the manuscript is then in a strong position to move into line-level notes, where attention can shift to sentence craft, clarity, and polish. At line level, the feedback focuses on sharpening impact and refining execution. For example, internal monologues such as, "Today was going to be a great day," she'd told herself, could be made more immediate and distinctive, giving us a clearer sense of Celine's voice. Several descriptive lines lean into familiar phrasing. Moments like physical descriptions of Pierce rely on well-worn language, which risks feeling cliched or repetitive. Varying these descriptions or shifting the focus toward emotional response rather than physical traits would create a stronger connection for the reader. Some dialogue also benefits from greater subtlety. Lines that are very direct or blunt could be softened to allow subtext to carry meaning, particularly in emotionally charged moments involving Kylie. Where characters state their intentions outright, there's an opportunity to deepen the emotional weight through action, implication, or tone. Finally, a few quieter exchanges lack punch. Strengthening these lines, especially those intended to signal connection or intuition, will help reinforce chemistry and emotional depth without relying on explanation. I hope you've enjoyed today's manuscript critique and been able to gain something to improve your own writing from it. Remember, you can head over to pepperfishpublishing.com and hit the Get Started tab to sign up for a free account with no payment details required and start critiquing your manuscript today. And if you choose a paid plan, don't forget to use promo code 90OFF for 90% off after the free cancel anytime trial. And if you'd like your manuscript critiquing in a future video, send a synopsis and the first 3 chapters to hello@pepperfishpublishing.com.